Today's guest, you might not know by name, and you probably wouldn't know him by sight either. But if you have come to Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, 29, Pioneer Town, anywhere out here, you have definitely seen his work. Today I'm talking to Derek McDonald from Golden West Sign Arts. Check it out. All right, Derek McDonald, thanks so much for joining me here on the Highway 62 podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Now, are you coming to us from Yucca Valley, or are you up in Reno?
I'm in Yucca Valley.
Right on. Right on. And, as I mentioned in the intro, if, you spend any time in the Morongo Basin around here, you've definitely seen Derek's work. You have a really active Instagram as well, which is a great place for people to see all your work. Your business is Golden West Sign Arts, and you do hand-painted custom vintage signs, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I guess they're not technically vintage, but vintage inspired.
Vintage styled work. So tell us a little bit of just kind of your background and how you ended up out in the Morongo Basin and became who you are.
Sure. Well, my background, raised in rural Nevada, an hour south of Reno, and grew up around there on a dirt road on an acre, in the sagebrush, and just had a pretty good childhood. And then moved to the Bay Area, was there for years in Oakland and Berkeley, and eventually got into what I do, sign painting and pinstriping and things like that, and ended up running a sign shop in Berkeley for quite a few years. And then the older I got, with each passing year, just the hustle and bustle and the weight on my shoulders of being in that area, just after a while, I just went, what am I getting out of this? So I moved back to Nevada. I moved to Reno, operated there for a few years in Midtown Reno. And then I got a job with Disney, a job offer to be a full-time sign painter and artist at Disneyland, at the actual park in Anaheim. So I knew better. I had already gone through the whole I don't want to live in a big city thing already. So I just moved here. And I commuted every day for years. I commuted from Yucca Valley to Disneyland 5 days a week.
Wow.
For a few years doing that job, and also ran my sign. I thought I was going to close my sign business down when I got that job, but it didn't last. I kept doing work on the side and everything. So I was just a busy guy. And eventually I wanted my freedom back, and I left the job at Disney. So I live in Yucca Valley full time, and I make trips back to Reno once or twice a month.
Gotcha. Tell us a little bit more about what you were doing at Disney, because although you had to do that tough commute, I imagine there was some cool projects there for you.
Yeah, every day was cool. Every day was amazing. I have nothing bad to say about that job or that experience at all. Wonderful people, amazing work environment. Yeah, it really was living the dream if you were one that wanted a steady 5 days a week situation.
Is some of your work still at Disneyland? If somebody goes today, are there any signs and stuff still that?
Oh yeah, wow. Plenty.
Plenty. What kind of stuff?
Well, for instance, you're familiar with Big Thunder Mountain, the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad attraction? Yep. The locomotives at the front of the trains, if you ever get a chance when you're in the park to look at those, the boiler and the lantern on the front are all hand painted. You know, it says Big Thunder
Wow.
Mountain Railroad, and it's got
Okay.
pinstriping and swirly whoop-de-doos
Cool.
and stripes and hand painted numbers. So, you know, that would be a good example of what I would do. Or,
Yeah.
you know, each Pirates of the Caribbean boat has a hand painted name and numbers on it, you know. So things like that. And
Yeah.
the carousel is from the 1870s, I believe, in Disneyland. Walt Disney was seeking out an antique carousel when he wanted to build the park, and he found one somewhere in the Northeast, upstate New York or something, and it was in shambles, and they brought it over here by train, and they restored it. And that's been part of the shop I worked for at Disneyland. That's been part of the tradition there, is to upkeep the carousel. So,
Uh,
and I don't mean touching it up. I mean, they will remove 4 horses at a time, completely strip them down. They're hand carved
wow.
carousel horses from the 1870s. Completely strip them down, sand them, fix all the little weird things, and then my shop, we would bring them back to, you know, looking brand new again, hand painted, and putting real gold leaf on the horseshoes. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty much what I did. I literally painted the eyebrows and toenails on Dumbo. Pretty fun. Yeah.
There's so much cool like background history to a lot of that stuff at Disney. Did you
Yeah.
get you know, were you privy to like the secret world and like just the background and the
Yeah.
underground areas and just all that kind of mythic stuff that we all hear about?
Yeah, I definitely lived in that realm. I mean, especially because the people that I got to work with, the nature of that that park and working there is that people work there for decades. You know,
Yeah.
people, my coworkers, my lead in the shop is maybe 5, 6, 7 years younger than me, and she's been there for 20 years. she's, you know, she started off low, you know, selling merchandise and retail, and worked her way up to tour guide, and
Yeah.
then saw the sign shop and was a really, really talented artist. So she moved to there. So anyway, point of that is, all these people I got to work with had all these stories just from
Yeah.
being there for so long. So I would hear all the lore and you know, get to go
Yeah.
behind the scenes. I mean, I worked,
That's
you
so
know, behind
cool.
the scenes.
That's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It was
I
cool.
love that. That's a great experience. I imagine that was a great experience. Going back a little bit, you know, how did you get started? Like, when did you get started doing any kind of artwork, and when did you start to feel like you had this affinity for it?
Oh, in any serious capacity, I mean, I've been doodling and messing around and creating things my whole life, and playing music and just being a creative person. I can't seem to shake it. But in any professional capacity, I guess I sold my very first sign job maybe in 2007 in Richmond, California, to a tropical
Mhm.
fish store. They had a really bad hand painted sign, and it was falling off the building and peeling. And I had been practicing for a couple years at that point, you know, but
Hmm.
still real, I wasn't ready yet. I
Yeah.
should have put myself back in the oven to bake longer. I wasn't ready, but I thought I was ready. And I approached them, and I made little flyers, you know, and I noticed your hand painted sign is faded. And they hired me. They go, yeah, sure. And I sketched up a neat thing with like a tropical fish on it and everything. And that was my first job. And I think that was 2007. And
Okay.
then I worked at an animal hospital as a vet tech full time. And I did that for like another couple years. And I think I quit in '09 to finally do this full time. But yeah, I got into it just by being into you know, anything handmade and traditional, and just being into like vintage style and aesthetic and things like that. And I've always been into old cars. I've had several vintage old car trucks, you know, from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so I'd go to car shows, and I'd see pinstriping and guys that had done, you know, names and script on motorcycle tanks, and it all just started clicking in my head. Like, people still do this, you know. And then
Yeah.
there's a tattoo shop in Oakland that I worked right next to, and I noticed they had some really beautiful hand painted script lettering on their window, and I asked who did it, and it ended up being this guy named Jimmy the Saint, this old time crazy sign painter. Rest in peace. He passed away a year or so ago. And then that was it. I was hooked. Like, There's this guy named Jimmy the Saint that paints windows in
Yeah,
Oakland. So I'm
yeah.
done. This is it.
You're in.
This is going to be the rest of my life, you know? Yeah. So that's
Cool.
kind of where it all started.
Hey folks, Seth here from Cliffhanger Guides. Are you curious about rock climbing in Joshua National Park? Got kids who love adventure out on the rocks? And hey, are you a Morongo Basin local? If so, we are stoked to offer you a 25 to 50% off guided rock climbing trip on non-peak season dates. Come climb, explore, and see your backyard in a whole new way. Head to cliffhangerguides.com, shoot us a message, and use promo code JTROCKS. Cliffhanger Guides, local roots and desert proud.
Very cool. So, when somebody comes to you, hires you, we want to get a sign done. Do they pretty much let you run with it and you just come up with drawings for them, or how, what's the process like?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start off by saying that yes, it is pretty much like that. It didn't used to be, especially when I was just getting out there, didn't have a huge portfolio, and I was operating in the hustle and bustle of Oakland, San Francisco, Berkeley, and things are so different there with things like this, with getting a sign made or with people's businesses. They're so brandy, so brand oriented. So a lot of my work used to be, well, yeah, cool, you do hand painted work. Here's our logo that we already paid somebody to design.
Right.
We want you to paint that on our windows 3 times, this window, that window, that window, that type of thing. So when I was running my shop, I actually had like a physical shop location in Berkeley, like a storefront sign shop, that studio kind of thing. No, it was so expensive just to survive there. I would just take on whatever. I would go to tech companies and paint their company motto on the, behind the front desk or whatever. And I did some fun stuff too. But over the years, I've been chipping it away and filtering it and molding what I want to do. And I would say a good 95, maybe more % of what I do is people just come to me and want a certain look, and I make a few sketches and they just say, yep, okay, go for it. Some customers around here locally don't even ask what colors I'm going to use. It's so different here. I finally found my place. I think operating in a small community, which fits my aesthetic anyway, Southwest vintage deserty kind of thing. Everybody's just so cool here. They're like, do what you do, I mean, not all the time, but most of the time it really is. Like Rachel Blackluck Vintage. She's the very first person to ever hire me to do a sign here. It's about 6 years ago. My very first customer.
Interestingly enough, she is the very first. Oh no, she's the second guest I had on the podcast.
Yeah, I love her so much. She's the best. I always make signs for her, several a year, and it's always like, she wants a hodgepodge. She wants a visual cornucopia in her shop. So it's just like, do whatever you want to do. And I just literally, if I'm feeling like I want to mess with some purple or a certain style, I just do it and I bring it to her, and she's always so happy. And it's not always the case with other people, but for the most part, people are very open, as long as I don't come up with some wacky thing that doesn't fit the
right.
Obviously my job is to make it very legible and to fit the style of the business, and that's something that I take very seriously. But other than that, I get away with murder.
Well, and you've established yourself. I mean, I follow your Instagram, so I see all the work you're doing. And so I assume most of the people hiring you have seen that. They know the direction they're going in, and they see your work. So they're probably pretty much like, whatever you're going to come up with, I don't want to interject and ruin it. And they let you run with it. And it's really great that you've built your business up to that point where you have that reputation and just people are going to trust you. I think a really cool, like, vintage wooden sign behind me that says Highway 62 podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Might be kind of cool. We're going to have to talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Easy. No problem.
Yeah, that would be fun. Out of, you've done tons of work out here. Give us a few of like what you consider to be like standouts and your favorite stuff you've done.
Well, 2 places stand out to me that I can't really necessarily pinpoint an exact sign at either of these locations, but just these two individual places as a whole, because they have so many signs that I've done that they're
Okay.
virtual. They've become like almost sign galleries of mine over the last few years. And one is Black Luck, and the other
Okay.
one is the Station in Joshua Tree. If
All
you go
right.
to either of those places, if you see a sign, it's most likely something
It's
that I've
you.
made over the last 5 or 6 years. They're just everywhere, including, at the station, Big Josh holds the muffler that says Joshua Tree, California.
Yeah.
I painted that.
All
They've
right.
got a huge
Awesome.
semi-truck trailer and it says Big Josh's Trucking Company. I painted that. Just a lot of stuff at both of those places.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine too that that station is used, in so many promos, and I mean that your work there has got to just have been seen by millions of people at this point.
Right.
Millions and
Yeah,
millions.
it must have. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting being a commercial artist. It's very different. I'm not an artist, a fine artist. I'm not working to put something up in a gallery and hoping somebody buys it.
Yeah.
It's I get to make functional art, I think of it as. Somebody has a specific need for their business, which is their heart and soul and their livelihood, and I get the honor of making something that's going to serve a purpose. Functional art, I like to think of it as. So, yeah, you go to the station and there's all these signs that says, we sell blankets, film, sunglasses, da 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 da, and they're all cut out like, a pair of sunglasses, and it's highly functional art, and I just get such a kick out of that. Even after almost 20 years or whatever, I still get such a thrill out of being a part of that. And the fact that I get to do that, it really makes me feel like I'm part of the community, which is
Yeah, for sure.
amazing. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's great. Here's a little bit more oddball. Is there a place or a business that's like you've seen it, you've thought about it, and it's like, this would be a dream one. I'd really love to do something for this.
Locally,
Or even not locally, anything.
yeah, there's places all over. Like I did a big job in Santa Fe, New Mexico a couple months ago, and I walked around the plaza there just going, I could have a field day in this town. There's the old historic hotel
Yeah,
called the La
sure,
Fonda.
sure. Oh, neat.
I would, I would just eat that stuff up. It would be amazing. Or I'm really into the idea, and I'm working on this. I'm slowly working on this happening. I'm really into the idea of me being able to go the old alignment of old Route 66, between here
Yeah.
and New Mexico, and kind of help revive some of the old trading posts or some of the old motels that might have old faded signs or whatever. So, places like that. In Winslow, Arizona, there's an old hotel called La Posada.
Yeah.
Places like that.
Sure.
I just wish that they would call me and go, we need, 6 months worth of your time to just like completely do this place up, and I would just be so thrilled.
Oh,
But
that'd be great.
I'm very lucky in what I do get to do. I'll be going to the Route 66 Museum in Kingman, Arizona, real soon here to do some work there. So
Great.
it's that's really what I want to be doing.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
to do stuff for Roy's and Amboy, which is a
Yeah, I was
historic
going to
Route
mention,
66
I
place.
saw in your bio that you had done work at Roy's. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that's
painted
just,
their windows, and it was 114
iconic.
degrees. Yeah.
I guess that is one of the drawbacks is the summer. The summer workload is a little rough here.
Yeah, I would I am not a cold person. I would much rather be painting outside in 110 with the proper cover up and
Yeah.
sunscreen, rather that than honestly painting in 55 degrees.
Yeah.
I don't like it. So when winter comes around, last year I did a bunch of Christmas windows, like temporary Christmas themed windows for tons of local businesses around here. And it was cold. I'm out there, painting windows and like north facing businesses on 62. They
Yeah.
don't get the sun in the winter. Freezing. My hands were freezing.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I don't mind
I'm
the
with
heat.
you. I'm with you. I hate the cold.
Yeah. And then we get it. We get enough, especially in Yucca and Pioneer Town. We get just enough to where, okay, I feel like we have the season and then it's short, rather versus where I come from. I also come from the high desert, but it's the higher desert, the Great Basin Desert outside of Reno.
Okay.
Our cold up there where I grew up, it goes on and on and on and on, it's like 8-9 months out of the year. So I'm happy to be, this climate suits me just fine. I'm in heaven
That's
here.
great.
I love it.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it.
Derek, so what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to contact you about getting some work done?
Well, my Instagram is, like you said, very active. I try to stay on top of that. I feel like a feeble old person trying to figure out the thing, but I make sure to keep posting on there. So that's a good place to check things out. It's just on Instagram, I think it's just goldenwestsignarts. Send me a message on there. I'm pretty quick to respond. And then my email is goldenwestsignarts@gmail.com.
Gmail. All right.
Yeah. And I'm always around. You see me at Red Dog or something.
I'll make sure to put all that in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. And yeah, I think, for visitors coming out here, coming out from the weekend from, wherever, San Diego or Los Angeles or whatever. I mean, I think it's interesting for people to, listen to this interview and then come out here and just see the work, because it is everywhere, which is really amazing. You're
making the connection. Yeah.
You're really making your mark on the area out here. And that's something really cool to be able to do that. Very few people can really do something like that.
It means the world to me to hear that, because I was so intrigued by the idea of working at Disneyland, partly because it was just a really good job to have, but also because you're involved, you're a small part of a big team that's creating an atmosphere. And I'm a sucker for a themed atmosphere. I grew up right next to an old historic silver mining town called Virginia City, Nevada.
Oh yeah,
and it's a legitimate, historic town, but it's got all the, Wild West stuff. So that's seeped into my brain growing up as a kid. It's just, it's ingrained in me. So the idea of working at Disneyland and helping be part of creating an escape. Well, I view this area the same way. Pioneer Town, of course, was literally built as a Western film set in the 40s, that you could live on and work in and whatever. And to me, that's just, I'm fascinated by that idea, and I'm fascinated by the idea of shaping the look of a place. So when people come here, they get a full blown, experience and have a little bit of escapism. And, I mean, I love when people tell me, I see your work everywhere. But when I drive down the highway, unfortunately, the way my mind is wired, I see all the places that I haven't worked for yet. And then I'll get grumpy and like, well, why haven't they called me yet? But I'm lucky enough to do that. People call me to paint stuff in, at all. I'm just extremely lucky. But I see so much more potential all around. It's like, if I could just have full control of, I wish they would just let me have full control of Pioneer Town. What's swimming around in my mind,
you're not asking
I
for
could
much.
Just bring that place back.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That would be an amazing project. Well, Derek, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today. And
my pleasure.
I'll make sure also, on the episode, if people are going to watch on YouTube, I'll put up some images of some of your work and things like that. So,
cool.
If you need a cool sign done, Derek's your guy. Thank you so much for joining me today, man.
You got it. Thank you.